Hello, and welcome back to this edition of the Warwick F1 show. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about Australia, previewing the circuit, and creating our new predictions. So, obviously, today it's me, Chinmay at the helm, and of course, as usual, we've got Will Biddles. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. It's nice to be previewing Australia again. It's nice to be back there. It's a shame it's not the start of the season, but you never know.
No, but I think we should be getting it soon anyway, as per the contract. And of course, we've got Callum joining us again. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I looking forward to Australia. Certainly won't be watching it at 4 a.m. or whatever the stupid start time is, but definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, early start. Unfortunately, we've got quite a few early starts coming up in the next few races, which is not great for us European fans, but you move at the end of the day. And unfortunately, we don't have Will Kingswood with us, but we can definitely manage without him today. But yeah, so yeah, obviously we're heading back to Albert Park for the third consecutive year with the new track layouts with the extended straights for DRS zones and again not being the first race of the season again. Obviously, with Bahrain now being that de facto season opener, we do expect Australia, I believe, to become a season opener at some point in the next few years, especially under the contract that it's got.
It's got to have it 2 by 2031, I think, is the agreement. So
yeah, I mean, I suppose I'll just open up to the floor. Really, what's your opinions of the new circuit layout? Last couple of races we've had.
I think it's definitely an improvement. I think if Australia wasn't the opening race of the season, it would have been a really kind of boring race to watch. It almost gave Monaco vibes. Like it wasn't narrow, but it was quite tight, twisty, not really flowing so much. It was kind of just, you'd look up, there was another corner after corner after corner. And even like at the end of the high speed straight that they've now got, it's still that tricky little chicane. It's not amazing for overtaking anyway. So I think the changes were definitely needed. But it's still hard to kind of see how exciting it will be as a race more than a kind of track position strategy game.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, yeah, no, I think I definitely agree with everything that Will said there. It kind of probably a lot of the excitement that we've gotten over before the new track regulations came out was probably because it was a season opener, and especially it didn't feel like it has that typical long back straight where you can really take advantage of the DRS. And as a result, we probably, before the new track layouts, didn't see as much overtaking opportunities as possibly did, but now with the new layout. And certainly if you look over the past couple of races, such as the one that we had last year was incredible with the, I think it was 3 red flags that came out in the end. And hopefully you could maybe give some credit of that to the new circuit layout. So it definitely has a lot of potential for overtaking compared to when the new track regulations came in before. And I think definitely in the position now that we are with obviously one car dominating, you definitely can't get enough of the much needed overtaking opportunities around these circuits. So I think it's definitely been an improvement.
Yeah, there's nothing much more from my side to add as well. Exactly what you two said, and obviously new circuit with the new regs just making it a lot more flowing, a lot more overtaking friendly, even though it's not, obviously still not the greatest circuit in the world for overtaking, but still a large improvement over what it's been compared to the previous edition of the circuit. Obviously, you mentioned the red flags last year, especially with stuff with the Alpines colliding into each other and stuff like that. Obviously, do you reckon we'll see a repeat, especially considering how far back Alpine are and how frustrated the two drivers will be at the moment?
I think I think there is definitely a possibility, and obviously, as you mentioned, with the Alpines being so far at the back, I guess with if any drivers in front have something as simple as a lockup, then that will obviously lead on to affect the drivers behind them. So typically, the further back you are, on the grid, maybe you could argue puts you at an even more risk, especially going into that first chicane. So it's definitely a possibility. And actually, I think something that I have predicted as one of my predictions for this week. So I think it's definitely very likely to have some chaos, and it's easy to see possibly a double DNF happening. Again, probably the last thing that Alpine want at the moment, but it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I think having those 4 DRS zones is going to make it a lot easier for the drivers to kind of stay in that train. And I think we've seen already this season that those points are going to be really valuable when they do come available. So if you get 1 or 2 of those top drivers in those 5 teams dropping out, you might start to see a big squabble for those last couple of points positions and see just some drivers sending it where they wouldn't have before in previous years, where they've got that more opportunities. And so if there is that opportunity this week, we might see some mistakes made, some late braking, some kind of collisions. And the first thing, for the first time this year, we've got gravel. So you do have that kind of, if you run wide, if you go in late, you are going to get punished for it. You're going to lose positions. You could get beached, etc. Not like even Jeddah, you've got the walls, but if you do run off, you can kind of just keep your foot planted and keep going. Whereas if you do run wide at these chicanes, it really does cost you.
Yeah, it's definitely going to see interesting to see some people who gets beached into the gravel traps, and if a certain Canadian driver can actually use their mirrors this time around, especially and avoid collisions around the circuit, trundling around. But yeah, it's going to definitely see, especially for if we've got 4 DRS zones, it could be the potential to have a lot of DRS trains, but then again, strategy does tend to play a big role at the circuit as well. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm not expecting a massive change in the pecking order of things, especially how things are going right now. Yeah, I mean, I suppose one thing I could quickly ask before we move on to predictions is, what team do you think will have the most to lose at this circuit? Which team do you think will have the biggest amount of things to prove after what we've seen in the first 2 races of the season? I'll probably start with Will.
I think Mercedes have a lot to lose. They've said they're coming into this weekend trying a lot of things out, trying to fix their car. And if they find an issue that is just fundamentally a part of that car, then they are in for a long season. Like we've seen, they're probably the 4th best team at the moment, I'd say, behind McLaren, behind definitely Ferrari and Red Bull. So if they want to kind of get into that battle for second and then even wins if Verstappen does DNF, then they're really going to have to figure out their car this weekend at a circuit where hopefully there should be lots of running.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Will on that. I would say Mercedes is definitely the most one, and especially I think Albert Park being a track where typically in the past they have thought they've been quite strong. Certainly last year, you could say that both the Mercedes were up there with Verstappen. Obviously, Hamilton was up there till the end of the race, and then Russell, you could say, was as well before he had that reliability issue. And I guess for the past 2 races, you could maybe have that argument. All right, it's maybe a bit more difficult to have that after 2 races, but you could still have that argument as maybe the car's not best suited to the track, but this is a track that Mercedes have typically been able to perform at. So you think that, especially as Will mentions with the new upgrades potentially they've got coming in, if they don't perform here and they don't get results, that's maybe now, after that happens, it's now a cause for concern. Now it's a real problem that we have that, again, as Will said, could stick with them for the rest of the season. So I feel like Mercedes are going to be under a lot of pressure for this race, certainly. And I'd say they're the main ones. Maybe some other ones saying, again, I think in the position that Alpine are under, then they're for every race they're going to be under a lot of pressure, especially from the results that they got last year with the double DNF, and their sponsors are certainly likely to be getting more and more impatient with the terrible performances that they've had for the remainder of the season. So I'd say certainly those 2, Alpine and as Will said, Mercedes for this race.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely add Mercedes. I'll definitely say Mercedes as well for exactly the same reasons. They're the ones who really want to try and who really are pushing to try and push up to the front two of for Red Bull and Ferrari, and they're the ones with the biggest things to lose as well. And then yeah, I mean I probably would say McLaren as well to an extent because especially they're one of the teams that really want to start pushing forward towards the front of the grid. And I suppose right now it's a race between who can do it first between Mercedes and McLaren. And I feel like there's going to be a bit of a race for third place this season between those two teams. So I suppose who can get the other momentum, and if McLaren can make the most of Mercedes' woes right now, and whether they really can outdevelop Mercedes in the season. So I suppose, especially with a different sort of track coming up as well, compared to Bahrain and Saudi, I suppose it'll be interesting to see what the pecking order looks like because Australia can sometimes obviously change things up.
Yeah, I think as well, one of the big changes this year from last year with Australia is actually the tyre compounds. They're taking a whole set of softer compounds this year. So for teams like Ferrari and Haas that think they've got much better tyre deck, especially Ferrari, they think they're really good on it this year. It's going to be it's going to be a good test of, okay, with these softer compounds, can you do that long stint, like one stop again? Or actually, can you push really hard on for a bit longer on these and do a two stop but still eke out that tyre life so you don't hurt as much?
I'd say also something as well that's to consider in terms of teams being under pressure. I think a lot of teams that maybe haven't performed as well as they wanted to will be under pressure to get points at a track like this because you're typical here to see a lot of retirements through crashes. Obviously, we had lots of restarts last season. So it's one of those circuits where just through opportunity alone of just how the race pans out, you can get the teams that typically would be at the back of the grid can get the opportunity to score points. So I think, and especially with the past couple of races, and also from, as I mentioned, from last year's Grand Prix, a lot of drivers really just crashing out on their own accord without battling with anyone. Obviously, we had Stroll last race in Saudi Arabia, and then I think last year we had just Alex Albon and I think it was Kevin Magnussen, definitely one of the Hasses who just happened to crash out from on their own accord, not battling with anyone. So there's certainly going to be opportunities in this race for those teams lower down the pecking order to take advantage of, and so I think those teams that have been underperforming will be looking to make up some key points, as you mentioned, for this race.
Yeah, no, exactly. In that case, then, before we move on to prediction, does anyone else have anything to add about the previewing the circuit? Anything else they want to try and bring into the spotlight before we move on? Well, in that case, then we'll move on to making our predictions for the Australian Grand Prix. So obviously we don't have Will Kingswood today, so obviously Callum will be substituting in, being our super sub.
Well, I've been dealt quite well because somehow I've managed to end up with this. I shouldn't say it, shouldn't spoil it, but a first place choice for 2 weeks in a row. I don't know how this has happened, but I've been spoiled. So it's no prizes for guessing who I'm going to predict for first.
I mean, would it be Oscar Piastri by any chance?
Ooh, I don't know how
Hometown hero
predicted that.
But yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah. I think Callum, we'll start with you then, since obviously you're substituting for Mr. Kingswood, who's meant to be first this weekend. So obviously, I suppose it might.
Yeah, well, I think. Well, obviously, it goes without saying, Verstappen first place. I think Will would be very, very disappointed on me. He might not even let me back on the podcast for next episode if I didn't pick Verstappen first. So, yeah, I'm going to go with that one for obvious reasons. Do you want me to do all five, or should we just do first places?
We'll do like the first place snake draft, and then we can do the rest of the top five, I think. So I think I'm the next, thankfully. I'm not stuck in that awkward, horrible third place where you kind of just have to choose someone. I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. I think Ferrari, if Verstappen's not going to win it, I think the Perez isn't going to win it realistically. Leclerc's been good there historically. Last year was unlucky, got taken out by Lance Stroll on the first lap. So
Yeah,
we'll kind of see what he can do. He's historically quite good around there. So I think I'm going to go with Leclerc P1.
fair enough. I suppose that leaves Sergio Perez for me to take. Then I'll take Checo, especially with. I mean, it's only been 2 races, so I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna say anything on Sergio's fault. How good he's been this season so far. It's only been 2, and he's done all right so far. Let's see.
He's become Valtteri Bottas.
Literally,
He's been the perfect number 2.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think. Unfortunately, I will take the boring choice, and I will go Sergio Perez. I'm going a bit more fun later on.
That's quite a bold choice for anything. I was going to say we normally put Checo second to kind of guarantee those points for when he ultimately finishes second.
True, but I think I'll go for I'll back Mr. Perez.
Yes.
So yeah, I suppose then we'll move on to the rest of the top 5 then, and Callum, if you want to fill us on what you've got then for Will.
Well, yeah, I've gone literally exactly what Will said. I've gone for Perez second. I think it's again with the strong form that he's shown so far. Again, we don't want to say too much, but I think he's definitely started the season off a lot stronger than he has in previous years. It's a track that you'd maybe expect him, being a street circuit, a track that you maybe expect him to be more stronger at compared to other races. And it does seem boring to predict for another Red Bull 1-2 again. And I do want to wish that I could predict someone else, another team to be up there. But if you're being realistic and trying to get the most points possible, which I think I should for Will, if you're being honest with yourself, you wouldn't. I personally, for me, I don't think I'd really put any of the drivers up there at the moment, and that's obviously not a good thing. We want it to be more competitive between teams, but that's just kind of where the different teams' paces are at the moment. I think for third place, I'm going to go with Hamilton. Again, we talked about how Mercedes have the maybe some upgrades coming in for this race, and also how they've been typically quite strong at this track in the past. And I think Mercedes do have the capacity at the moment to possibly put together a really good race for at least one of their drivers. So I went with Lewis Hamilton. Then fourth place, I was debating to get a Ferrari in there, and I went for Charles Leclerc in the end. Obviously, we don't know how much Sainz's time off is going to affect him, and I still think he'll be very strong. But I think certainly Leclerc might, just for the first race back, he might just edge Sainz with again maybe the time away from racing that Sainz has had. And then fifth, I thought I would finish off with Oscar Piastri. Again, I still think McLaren have the potential to be up there with the good form that they've shown, the good pace in their car that they've shown early on this season. And I hope it's a little bit of a hope that I hope Piastri can get a good result at his home Grand Prix. But yeah, I've gone with Piastri P5.
I'm quite similar. All right, so I'll skip over some of the ones that are the same. So I've got Leclerc first, obviously. Perez second for basically all the reasons we've kind of discussed already. Verstappen third, because I think realistically, if someone is going to finish third, it will be Leclerc if Verstappen wins. So it kind of cancels out each other. Sainz fourth, going that 2x2 still. Sainz again had some good form recently, started the season well. I'm scared that he might end up in the gravel again because he does like it, but hopefully he avoids it this year. And then I've gone Piastri fifth as well. I think he got his first points here last year. Hometown, he's the favourite Australian this year, even though Danny Rick's back, which is good. And I just think he's going to have a much better season than Lando Norris, if I'm honest.
Fair enough. So obviously we're going Paris with. I went for Leclerc second. I feel like, especially Leclerc is normally very strong at the circuit. He won in 2022. I mean, yes, that was capitalizing on an engine engine failure on Max, but where I think he was winning the race on merit anyway. 2023, obviously, he was punted off. He was punted out of the race. And then so I'm thinking, Ferrari are really showing a lot more confidence in the car. Then I'll put my money on Leclerc to do well. I put Verstappen third. Because I think in that respect. And then fourth, I went for George Russell. Especially considering, I'm expecting Mercedes to have some form of good pace here, and I feel like Russell might be able to outperform Hamilton. I know this is going by my gut feeling here. And then fifth place, I've gone for. Hang on, I went for expected Oscar Piastri. No, but yeah, I mean, exact same reasons. Hometown hero. He got his first points last year. And more to do with the hometown. He'll probably get the extra motivation that way. And yeah, so in that case, then we'll quickly move on to our 1, 2, and 3 pointer predictions. So I suppose we'll just go in the same order. Callum, if you want to kick off with
Well, if we've all predicted Piastri to get a good result, then knowing our luck, they'll probably DNF or something, but hopefully not. I went with a similar. I kind of included that result in both my predictions. So for my 1 pointer, I went with one McLaren in the top 5. I'd like to think that either Piastri or Norris would be capable of that. Again, let's say, like I said before, with the good pace they've had. And then for my other 2 predictions, I was hoping for a bit of chaos as we had last season. Forget the fact that I tried to go with chaos at Saudi Arabia and it was a pretty terrible race, but hopefully this time it will work. So for my 2 pointer, I've gone with one team has a double DNF. I'm hoping that maybe Alpine can help me on that one. And then for my 3 pointer, I went with 2+ standing restarts.
Ooh, 3 pointer.
That's good. I like that.
So yeah, we're all going to go for your 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So seeing as I've had no predictions come right this year, all of my mighty 11 points have come from my driver predictions. So I'm going really safe with my 1 point that there'll be a red flag in one session. So at some point in the weekend, we will have a red flag. My 2 pointer is that I've then said that 2 non-top 5 teams will score points. So, like 2 teams of RB, Haas, Williams, etc. will score points.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sauber and whoever the other team I've forgotten is. And then my 3 pointer is that 15 or less drivers will finish the race.
Oh, you're expecting chaos.
I'm hoping there's just like a massive pile up on the first lap that can tick all of them off.
We've both gone down the chaos route, I see.
Yes. So both Red Bull get taken out with both Mercedes on the first corner, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, so so I'm not gone for any red flags or safety car predictions in mine. Spoiler alert. So my first 1 point is going to be at least 7 teams in Q3. I always have to go for qualifying prediction. My 2 pointer will be both Australian drivers beat their teammates, because if that makes sense. Or is that a bit safe?
That's a
good 2 pointer after Dan Eric's recent showings.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's unlucky. It's unlikely for RB. I'm maybe more likely for the McLarens, but
yeah,
I'll give that as a 2 pointer.
Did you say both or either?
Both.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a 2 pointer. Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, and then my third one, I thought of a throwback on this one. Haas have to retire a car due to pit stop error. But it has to be a pit stop error that they.
That's so specific. I would have gone with like a Haas loses a wheel. That seems more likely. That even happened last year. It happens every year.
The tyres just don't like to stay on the cars in Melbourne.
No.
Don't know why it's specific to that track, but
Just
Especially on
perhaps.
Hasses.
yeah.
Especially with 2018 and 2019, it happened consecutive years. And I think, was it 2018 where they did it on both cars?
Yeah,
2018 they lost both cars.
Onto the same
literally
tyre
straight
as
out the
well.
pits.
And then Magnussen, as you say, lost a tyre at the wall
I mean,
last
smashed the wall last year.
year. Yeah.
No, I thought I'd go for a bit out there of a 3-pointer
Okay, fair enough.
for throwback. So
Making the most of his 2-point lead.
yes. I mean, in hindsight, it did cost me my win last season, but I don't care.
That's fine.
But yeah.
That's
But yeah,
a
in
good
that
set of
case, then
predictions.
yeah. So that does make our predictions for the Australian Grand Prix. Then, so who's gonna? Will there be a lot of chaos? Can Alpine actually stand a chance of scoring any points at all? Can Mercedes
No.
catch up? Yeah, that's probably the answer. Yeah, and can Mercedes and McLaren catch up to the front two, and can Ferrari actually do something to help make the season any form of interesting, please? So, yeah, I mean, in that case, then that is our preview for the Australian Grand Prix. I am Chinmay. We got Will and Callum. Obviously, thank you for being here today. And yeah, that is the Warwick F1 show, the Australian preview edition.